Hey everybody, what's up? Today I'm playing two matches. The first one is at the $100 level on full tilt, and the second one is at the $50 level. Both of these matches feature some key hands where I catch bluffs and also where I make bluffs, and I think these are the sort of matches that are good to show because catching and creating bluffs is really where you're making a lot of your money in the HeadsUp game. This first match is against Max Bluffer. It's a $100 match, and I haven't played him before. I start out actually min-raising, which is unusual for me, and I get a fold. Normally, of course, I'd be limping, so I'm not really sure why I started min-raising this match. He min-raises me, and I'm going to call because I'm getting 3-1 on the immediate raise and about close to sort of 75-ish, whatever it is, 74-1 as the implied odds if I can catch a big hand. And that's a pretty good flop for me. Hit middle pair. The board's a little drawy, of course. I check to give him a chance to bet. I don't really want to bet out here. If you donk out, it really looks like you're weak, and that will encourage an aggressive player to push you off the hand. So I check. He bets a standard 60 into the 80, and that's a pretty easy call. The turn is a beautiful 6, and I'm just going to check again. Hopefully he's going to give me some more chips here, which he doesn't, and as long as I don't see a 4 or a 7 or a 9, I'll be pretty happy. Probably I also don't want to see any diamonds or hearts, I guess. I mean, board is not sort of fantastic, even though I've got 3 of a kind. And that's a 7 of diamonds, a pretty horrible card. Here I bet 80, and I'm doing this as a blocking bet. So a lot of the time he'll have a 7 here, where sort of he's got some sort of draw. Even though he's min-raised, I'm not putting that out of his range. And he raises me to 180, and I really don't like this spot now. He could well have a 4, a 9, a flush, and it really looks like he's taking me to Value Town. Let's have a look. There's 380, what is that, 460 in the pot, and it's only costing me 100, so I'm getting 4.6 to 1. Don't have to be right very often, and I call, and he turns up with Queen Jack, so obviously he lives up to his name, Max Bluffer. Alright, limp the next hand. He raises to 111. Quite often this is going to be a spite raise. If I had something like a premium hand like kings or queens, I'd definitely be limping here, trying to catch the spite raise after he's sort of lost the previous hand. And obviously I fold on that particular holding. And min raise, I'm going to call with my pocket 3s. Pretty horrible flop. This time he bets out 40, but I can't go anywhere there with 3 overcards. Limping, and he lets me limp. He bets 20 here, and I'll let him have it. Not going to get fancy. Once again the min raise, once again getting good odds. Haven't hit the flop, and once again, I'll just fold this up. It's no problem. I'm in raise just to control him, doing this on an ordinary holding, and I get a surprise fold, so that's a bonus. And calling his min raise, I've got 9-10 off suit. Hit middle pair, checking because he's raised and he's probably going to bet, and he does. And here I 3-bet him straight away. He's been doing this min raise stab, min raise stab, min raise stab, and I want to know where he is. Flat calls me, which is not so nice, but the 9 is nice. And I check it just to see if I can get a bluff out of him. I can't. King of Diamonds probably not the greatest card in the world. I'm betting 80 here, trying to entice a bluff. So, if he's going to sort of if he's got some sort of hand which is missed, or if I look weak, he might well come over the top. Unfortunately, he doesn't. In hindsight, it probably would have been just better sort of donking out the turn and then betting the river. I would have got more chips that way, but I gave him a chance to bluff. He's proven that he can bluff. Limping, and once again the spite raise, and that's fine. I'll let him have that. So more min raising. I call on king 3, check, and he checks behind. Don't really like the 10. I'm not going to give him a free card now because, you know, any jack or queen or whatever could hit a gut shot. No point giving him a free card, and he folds. Limp on ace 10, get raised, easy call, and hit the nuts. And I'm not playing these slowly. I'm simply going to raise him straight away. If he's got any king, queen, or jack, I expect him to call. If he's got a 10, I expect him to call 2 hearts. So I'm going to play this fast, and unfortunately he folds, which did surprise me, but obviously he had no piece of that, and I simply couldn't get any chips out of him. Alright, so he raises my limp. Probably should have min raised that just to get into the pot a bit cheaper when I think about it. And I'm going to call his min raise. Horrible flop. Let him take it down. And here I try getting in a little bit cheaper and get 3 bet. So that didn't work very well, but queen 3 is a pretty easy fold. And he folds my 8-2. That's a nice bonus there. Here we've got ace king offsuit. I limp because he has attacked my limps quite a lot, and this time he declines, so nice timing, sir. And I just check behind. I've got some showdown value, I've got some draws. Now I'm going to bet on the turn, and I get sort of check raised. Lovely, that hand sort of couldn't have gone much worse. So I'll fold up that. It's a pretty bad spot for us. And he folds to us. Limping, not getting raised. Got a gut shot and 2 overcards. And now with this sort of 2 suited board and 5, 6, 7, I can't really imagine this being a good call, so I'll just give it up. Once again, he min raises and we call. We've hit a 6 here, which is nice, and I just flat call, which is a little passive there, I guess, and check it. And now on the river, I block him, and he knows he's probably not going to bluff me off, so he folds. And fold my 6-2 offsuit. He's raised every time he's lost a pot, so that's not the time to go limping rubbish. He's min raising. Obviously I'm going to call. This time I missed the flop, and looks like he might have too, or he could be trapping with a monster. Got some showdown value, but he'd hit with his middle pair and declined to bet it on all 3 streets, which is a little bit mystifying to me. Just don't know what to say about that, really. Perhaps he thought I had an ace, even though I've called nearly all of his min raises. I mean, I just don't know what to think about that. Alright, limping with jack 4, and I'll bet here, get check raised. Wish I didn't bet there, and have to give it up. No point calling here with bottom pair. I could never be far ahead, even if he sort of didn't have much, so I'll give that up. And more min raising from him. Paired board. He bets 90 into it, and I can't do much there. I'm waiting for a spot where I've got a big edge, and I fold my 2-6. The min raise, we catch. Here we've got an overcard and a gut shot, and he's making it nice and cheap to try and catch that. Now we've got an open ender, and we've missed, and I'm not going to bluff this guy at this stage. I'll just let him have the pot. And he hits with his 9. I really don't think I was ever pushing him off second pair there, so I think not betting the river was fine. Alright, min raising because he attacks my limps a little bit, and that's a very nice flop. I'm just going to check behind. I would often do that with an ace, and now I bet the turn and take down the pot. So I don't need to fire out there. I certainly don't want to get check raised, and he has been check raising a little bit so I don't mind checking behind there, and it worked out pretty well. Alright, another min raise, I call, and for Queen Jack offsuit, that is just a horrific, horrible flop. His opening range is very, very wide, so I think I'll just be giving this a miss. And he bets 90, and he can have it. His bet sizing changes a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised if the larger bet was actually a bluff, but he can have it. And I took that one down with a min raise pre. He limps, and this will hit his limping range, and he's raised to 150. I actually sort of re-raise. I don't really see him having a king here, and he folds. It will hit his limping range, as I said, but a king is not really in his range. So what we're looking at there is possibly a 3 or a 4, and I've made, I think by the raise I got either of those hands to fold, and it could have been complete air also. So that was a nice pot. I limp my ace jack. I expect a raise after he's lost that last hand, and I get it, and I shove on him just to show him who can be the bigger idiot, namely me. And he's about to get his revenge this hand. The min raise, I call, and here I've got obviously a flush draw, a gut shot, and an overcard. So I'm pretty happy to get my chips in here. I've got a ton of outs, and he bets that big 99. I'm certainly shoving. I do, and get called by 10-9. That's not nice. Now I have to hit my 8 or my flush draw. So I've still got a lot of outs. So I've got 4 8s and 8 hearts. So that's 12. So I'm roughly 50% here. And when the turn comes the 10 of clubs, I'm roughly bugger all, because only the 8 of hearts will now save me with the straight flush, which of course I was screaming for, but it wasn't to be. And he doubled up. So we got in with a reasonable equity there. He had a stronger hand than I thought he might have, but I'm not too unhappy with my shove. Alright, min raising, and not a very nice flop. I take a stab, and he min raises me back. I just don't think I can even, I can't do anything here. Just have to fold it. And he folds to me, I fold to him, and now that he's got the lead, he looks like he's tightened up even a little bit. So I'm just min raising there. Nice flop for me. Bet 60, get called, and here I check behind. I want to give him a chance to bluff at the river. I probably should have bet, but yeah, I'm giving him a chance, which he declines, and now I'm just going to bet for value and get called by bottom pair there. So at this stage, you probably think he's not the guy to bluff, but in a minute I'm going to sort of pull a whopping bluff on this guy, and you'll see how that works out. Alright, here I've got a gut shot and 2 overs to the 9. I could be in decent shape here. He's only bet 60. Just going to call, and the 10's probably a pretty good card, I'd expect. Now I've got second pair. He checks down, and a king on the river, so I think I could bet this for value. I bet half pot, and he folds. So calling that worked out alright. Basically, not only did I have a gut shot, but also the 2 overcards to the 9 and the 2, and I thought that was strong enough to call just a 60 bet, and it worked out once I hit one of my outs. Alright, limp, and he bets just 30. I'm going to call that with my middle pair. 6 on the turn's a really awful card, completing a straight if he had a draw, and it looks like he's just trying to milk me by betting 60 there, and I think I'm going to avoid the trip to Value Town and just fold. And he folds to my ace 8, nice timing. I fold with 5-3. It's really against this guy. Most of the time it's min raise or fold, and I just think I'd rather fold. Look for a good spot. And I limp, get away with it. He checks, and I take a stab, get raised again. Happens all the time. So I think he's bluffing me quite a lot. And here we get to the sort of key hand in the match, and I hope I can really explain what I was thinking on this hand, because I take what looks like a pretty fishy line, but at the time I thought my logic was okay. So he min raises, I call, and I flopped the second nut flush draw. Check it, of course, he bets pot, and I flat it. The queen gives me more outs. Now I can catch a 10, so I think I'm going to be good here. If a 10 falls, a king, a club, or yeah, that's it, a 10, a club, or a king. He bets 400, and I mean, I don't like this. I've got sort of a few choices here. Obviously I could fold because the odds are not so good. I do think he's full of it though. I don't really think he has a hand here. I think he's just trying to bully me, so I could probably shove over the top. Not sure if I get a fold. What I'm worried about is getting called by a hand which is actually not that strong, but actually sort of better than mine. So it's a situation where his bluff might be better than my bluff, and if I shove him all in and he calls, I've got no chance to win except for to suck out. So the sort of hand I'm talking about here, he might have something like a 7 with the 10 of clubs, or any sort of low pair and a club which he thinks could be good. I mean, it could be something like 7 and the 9 of clubs or something like that, or even just the bare ace of clubs, which I obviously can't beat. So I take a really weird line. I decide I'm going to flat call this, and then I'm shoving the river pretty much no matter what comes. Obviously if a king or a 10 or a club comes, that's great, I think, unless he's got the ace of clubs. And if it's a blank, then I think by shoving I'm going to push him off those hands where he's bluffing, but his bluff is better than my bluff, if you know what I mean, or his bluff is better than my rubbish. So I flat call. The turn's a 6, which is just not so good, and now I shove my chips in, close my eyes, and basically cross my fingers hoping I'm going to get a fold out of him. So my read was that he was weak, and that he might be weak but stronger than me, and this is my only chance to take down the hand. I really think this is a pretty low percentage line, but I decided to play it, and I did think it through beforehand and came up with this sort of plan. And now if he calls, I suspect it's match over, and he folds. That was a huge pot. Pretty fishy line I took, but it worked in the circumstances for this particular player. And now I've got ace king, and I know that he's spazzed out every time I want a big pot. So just min raise here, don't get too tricky. He shoves, and of course I'm snap calling. He's got ace 9, and I hold. And that's the end of that match. So this is the second match, and I've played this guy one other time. He was pretty aggressive and pretty spewy, fond of the big bluff. Limp king 2 offsuit. He 4x's my raise, and calling this would be a pretty loose call, so I'll just fold. Pocket 7s, once again 4x, and I'm just going to flat, see a flop before I commit any chips. And that's a pretty horrible flop, of course, so I'll be giving that one up. And 8, 9, he shoves. Well played, sir, you are a champion. And 3x and ace 5, and that's a little bit loose to call there. I'd be calling on maybe ace 8 or better. This is the sort of guy that you get one shot to take out sometimes, and I want to have a better kicker than a 5 if the ace drops. Folding my 9-2 because he's so aggressive pre-flop, and he folds to my queen 6, which is pretty weird. So I'm trying to limp, and he shoves again. Beautiful. I would definitely try and limp a monster against this guy, because I mean, he seems to be shoving a really high percentage pre-flop. And 3x's. I'm not going to call with 9-4 offsuit. And I try the min raise to control him. It works because he checks. And take a stab, get called. Didn't pick up anything on the turn. I thought maybe I'd pick up maybe a heart or something like a 7. That would have been nice for any sort of draw, but I've got nothing. And on the river he bets 140, and his style is generally to bet really big when he's bluffing, and this looks like a value bet to me. Not that I'm ever thinking of calling on 6 high, but that's his style. It's what I've picked up in the last match, and this match as well. And he raises to 80. I'm shoving because I think that he will call on many worse hands, and I get the fold. Bit of a waste perhaps. I min raise, and he shoves back. So don't think he liked the fact that I shoved. And here he limps. Paired board, can't attack this against an aggressive player. And I've got a gut shot on the turn, but if I bet I expect to get raised here. And he overbets the pot. That's a pretty easy fold for me. And fold my 4-8. Jack 9, he limps, so I'm happy I get to play it. And I pick up a beautiful flop, hitting a 3 of a kind. Just going to check. And now on the turn I'm betting pot. He flat calls me, and the 10 of clubs is not a nice card. Gives me the straight, but it also sort of puts a possible higher straight out there and a flush, of course. Don't think the chances of him having an ace are that high, but I'm just going to check for pot control, and he bets 80, and I think this is really actually an interesting hand. Obviously I'm calling with my straight, and he's got the ace, and there you can see when he actually has what is probably going to be the nuts in this hand with the ace high straight, he just bet for value. He didn't do anything like a huge shove. So that's his style, betting for value and overbetting as bluffs as far as I can tell. And I'm in raise and get into the pot. Cheap here. And I check, king on the turn. He checks, and I take a stab trying to represent either the king or the queen, and he flat calls me, checks out of position, I check behind, and he's got top pair. So there's another strong hand, and he didn't spaz out with it. He just flat called, hoping I was going to bluff at him. So this sort of confirms my read that when he's actually got the goods, he plays fairly conservatively and for value, and his big flashy bets are most likely bluffs. And 4x, I think. I'm going to call that on king 10 suited against a guy that's often 4xing. Horrible flop. And he can have that. Here I get to a hand where I make a pretty, what's the right word for this, awful play perhaps. I check behind. Here he makes an overbet, and I think this is a bluff. So I re-raise him, trying to take this down with my ace high, thinking he's bluffing. But no, apparently my views are wrong, and he shoves, so I can fold this with quite possibly no outs, and be left with 470, which is not a great position. Or I can call it hoping he's on something like queen 9, 8, 9, king queen, and hope that my ace high is good enough. And I've really put myself in a bit of a horrible spot. The whole match hasn't gone that well, and I think I'm going to fold. I don't really feel that I want to get my chips in there with ace high. So he limps, and we've got a gut shot, and he attacks the board again. Not going to try anything fancy after the last time. Fold my 2-6. Things aren't going too well, but finally we pick up a hand, and he 5x's this time. I've got an easy shove, which he calls on jack 10, and 7-8 on the board, and I can just see in my mind a 9 peeling off here, and that distresses me, obviously, that idea, but luckily I hold, and back up to 870, and I fold the next hand because I think this sort of guy is very likely to start shoving after he lost a pot like that. And he's back to his normal 4x raise. 10-7's not good enough to call that. And I'm folding still. I've just taken the big pot off him. He limps. And I could raise ace-10 there, but I'm a post-flop player generally. I want to see a flop. This is not a particularly good flop. And he's stabbing on the turn, and he can have it. I'm waiting for a better spot. If he raised me here, I might well have shoved him, by the way. And now that he bets pot here, I'm kind of glad that I didn't. Not the best flop for my 6-6. And he's 3xing, 8-5, pretty easy fold. Limp, and we were allowed to limp. And just take a stab here, get cold. And obviously I'm not going anywhere, and I think he's 150 there. Could well be a bluff, it's hard to tell. And ace-jack, he limps. And I raise, take down the pot. And here we've got jack-10, I min-raise. And we've hit top pair with an okay kicker. I take a stab, hope that he raised me right here and I can get the chips in. He flats. The 9 doesn't look like a terribly bad card to me. Doesn't complete any straights. It doesn't bring the flush. So I'm happy to keep betting here. And I bet 90 into this pot, hoping that it'll come over the top. I don't really want to scare him off with only one card to come. And he shoves, so I'm pretty happy to see that, I think. Snap call, and he's got 10 with the worst kicker. I've just got to fade the 7. Which I do. And obviously I run well there, and I'm back in the match. And more 4x from him. Easy fold. And once again on 7-5, I'm not limping as many hands against a guy who'll punish my limps. And 3x, not going to call loose on queen 6. And fold my king 2. As I said, he is punishing my limps. So I'll be staying out of the way. Not going to be attacking flops where I don't hit them. And he takes it down with an overbet. And finally, we catch queen, queen. Lovely hand. I raise, get called. And not the best flop. 7-8-5, really connected. I think I've either got to fold or shove here. And against someone this spewy, I'm just going to shove. There's a lot of cards I don't want to see if I flat call. A 6, a 4, a 9. I mean, you know, a 7, an 8, a 5. I really won't know what's good or what's bad here. So I'm just getting the chips in. If he's got me beat, he's got me beat. And luckily he doesn't. And 3xing. Not going to make any loose calls, as I've said a couple of times already. Try min-raising to control him, which works really well. And unfortunately, can't hit a flop. And I'll just give it up. And here he's bet 60. That really looks like a value bet. And once again, it backs up my read that he's betting big when he's spewing. And he's betting sort of smaller for value. Queen, queen. And against a guy like this, I mean, I've got to be, you know, odds that he's about to make some dumb raise. Odds on that he'll do something silly. And he folds. Well played, sir. Nice timing. Min-raising to control him and actually take down a pot, which surprised me. And apparently he's says sitting out. I don't know if he actually is. Min-raise again, and I get 3x'd. King Jack's not the best to call in this spot, but it's only 120 chips, and there's 240 in the pot, so I'm going to call, see if I can hit a monster. And I flop 2 pair on a pretty drawy board. That's great. He bets his big overbet, which I read as a bluff, but it doesn't matter. I'm shoving anyway with 2 pair. So I stick it in, and he folds. And now we've got him down to 8-15. Things are looking alright. He folds there. I limp. He shoves. That's okay. I might have saved a few chips there. 8-8. I'll be happy to get the chips in here. But he folds. And 3-9. I'm going to sort of limp this, and he shoves. And ace-8. He shoves. Oh, sorry, he 3x's. And this is a very easy shove for me against a guy like this. He calls on king 9 and picks up a 9 on the flop. Not the nicest of flops, really. Now I'm hoping for a heart so we can split, or an ace. And I get a rather ironic 8, which means, you know, good news, I hit a pair. Bad news, it didn't help me. And I just limp, hoping he's going to raise me, which he does. I'm going to snap call on ace jack, of course, and I'm up against ace jack. Wonderful. Do have the flush outs, but not on that flop. Alright, and he folds my ace7. I think against a guy like this I would have got it in with ace7. And I try min raising with my 9-10. I want to see a flop, and the min raise is controlling him. But of course on this sort of flop he's going to spaz out, and he does. He knows that's not going to hit my range. And he min raises me. Got pocket sevens, min raise to control him. Get flat called, 2 overcards, not nice. And I check behind. And 2 on the turn, and he bets pot, which I call. Not really sure if I'm good or not here. Then on the river, he shoves, and my read is that if he actually had a good hand here, he would be betting for value. He'd probably be betting about 240 if he just hit a top pair or 2 pair. So I think his shove here is weak. The question is, how weak? I mean, even if he has an 8, I'm beaten. And, let alone a 9 or a king. So now I have to think about what I can beat. Obviously, I can beat misdraws like 10 jack, queen jack, 6-7, which isn't that likely, 5-6, any 2 hearts, queen 10, I don't know if I mentioned that one. So there's a lot of draws out that he might have taken this line and then shoved on. And my read is that he's weak, so I think I'm going to look him up. And if I lose this, I have a bit less than 1,000, which means I'm still in the match. And of course, if I win it, then it's game over and $200 to me. So, 4th pair, not my favorite call down, but just his bet sizing makes me think the call down is right. And also, remember, I played a previous match with this guy, and his big bets, as I said, do tend to be bluffs. So I'm calling, and queen jack. He had the missed gut shot in 2 overs, and my bet sizing tell was in fact correct. Pretty tough call, but I felt it was right at the time for the reasons that I stated. So that's the second match. I hope you've enjoyed that and picked up some of the bet sizing stuff that I've been talking about. And until the next video, I hope you run well.